Welcome back, everybody. It's English, but I want to thank Liberty. Without them, this wouldn't be possible, and they've been in education in South Africa for over 30 years. Would you please download the Tenfold Education app? There's so much there that I'm sure you'll find useful. And would you follow us on YouTube at Mindset Learn? What we're doing is looking at how to approach paper 2, and I have been recommending the PEE, PEA way of answering those 3-mark questions, those longer questions. I want to go on with this a little bit. So here it is again. So if, for example, you're asked about the alliteration or the simile or something like that, you begin with the alliteration emphasizes what? Emphasizes that the person is miserable, let's say. Then you're going to say, we see this when, and you're going to give me something to do with the alliteration or the simile. It is shown when, and this makes me understand. This shows us, and this is your discussion. Now, do you see that you've made a point here about the simile, the metaphor, whatever it is, and you're showing me we see it when. This is your evidence. And then you are linking this evidence makes me understand, or this shows me, and you are linking your evidence to your point. You are explaining how that piece of evidence relates to the point that you made. Still looking at your level 4 and 5 questions, your 3-mark questions, is unpack the question. So that very often the question gives you steps. And if you highlight the steps in the question and then link those steps, you will find that you get to the 3-mark question or the 3-mark answer, the answer that you're going to get 3 marks for. So you need to look at those 3-mark questions and say, they've got to be a bit more detailed. There's got to be a bit more understanding shown, a bit more insight for those questions. Very, very important. Setting is a 2-mark question, and it's time and place. I find most of my learners get the place, but they forget the time. So the time doesn't have to be at 8 o'clock in the morning. It could be. I could say to you, the bell has struck 9, then you know the time. But the time could just be when something has happened or when something is about to happen. That also gives you the time. This is when Macbeth has left Duncan to tell his wife that Duncan is coming to stay and he's about to meet the witches. That's your time. And the place is on the heath. Please remember time and place. My learners know this, and when I ask them, they say it, and then in a test they forget. Tone questions are difficult. They are difficult because, as I've said many times before, they test your vocabulary. But let's start with, please use an adjective. This is what the markers want at the moment. So don't just write hope. Write, Khumalo uses a hopeful tone. So what we're saying is, please write, let's get a nice red for this, write the word and write the word tone after it. So you are using the word tone every single time. And that will give you an adjective here. And do not give me more than one tone. Things go horribly, horribly wrong. So here are examples from my own candidates. Well, is the tone confident or is it hopeful? Is it hopeless or is it afraid? Is it arrogant or is it self-assured? And then I just loved this. Between hopeful and boasting. Well, what is that? In other words, would I please supply the tone because the candidate thinks it's somewhere between these two words, cannot think of a word, please would I supply the word and then would I give a mark to it? No. Now the problem here is they are not the same. Not even arrogant and self-assured. Arrogant is a word of criticism in English. If I say, what an arrogant teacher, that's condemning that teacher. If I say, what a self-assured teacher, I'm praising the teacher. So never give more than one. Stop and think, is it confident or is it hopeful? Which one is the better word? So you're working on vocabulary. If we come back to this, it is very important that you think about how you would justify this, how you would give a reason. So if this is my P, if that's my point, can I find evidence that he is hopeful? And can I explain or analyze or discuss how this piece, this line, this sentence shows that he's hopeful? Because that could be a 3-mark question as well, and you need to use the same structure. And that's why you're going to have trouble here, because you can't justify both of them at the same time. When we come to atmosphere, we're going to use a very, very similar way of approaching it. You're going to put the word atmosphere after each one. And then if it turns out to be a PEA question, so you've said this is a friendly atmosphere, I would like you to begin with the friendly atmosphere is shown and then say when somebody says something or in this line. Now I know that it's repetitive technique and I'm aware of that. I'm not teaching you the best style, but I'm not concerned about that aspect of style here. What I am concerned about is that you make sure you don't do something different. So if you said it is a friendly atmosphere, then say the friendly atmosphere is shown here. Why I'm saying this is my learners will say it's a friendly atmosphere and then say Khumalo is hopeful. In other words, you are now not supporting your own point. So a way around this is to recommend this repetition. Yes, it's clumsy. Yes, it shouldn't be necessary. But I think you should use it to keep yourself focused. And the same thing if you've said it's a hopeful tone, you then say Khumalo is hopeful because. So you are keeping your mind focused on hopeful, hopeful. I'm arguing hopeful. I'm not arguing confident. So as I say, not stylistically wonderful, but it will keep you focused. There are irony questions in every single exam. You either get 2 or you get 0. Why? Because irony depends on contrast. A contrast between what somebody expects and what actually happens, what somebody thinks and what is actually going on, what somebody hopes and what happens the next day, on what somebody believes and what is the truth. There's always a contrast. So I want you to use this pattern to answer your irony question. X, but Y. So you're going to say, Khumalo hopes that he will find Gertrude, but when he does, he is disappointed because of X. Khumalo thinks something, but this is the truth. Khumalo expects to find his son in Johannesburg, but when he does find his son is already in prison for murder. So his expectation is, I'm going to find my son and everything's going to be well and I'm going to take him home to his mother, doesn't happen. Right. This all the way through, please. If you're asked to quote, you're going to use your single inverted commas. Otherwise, you've got to use your own words. If you don't use your own words, if you lift it out of the text, you're going to get naught. And some people lift it, don't put in the inverted commas and think the marker won't recognize it. The marker will recognize it. Now, I often write this on my learners' answer scripts. They are not answering the question. So you need to say, what exactly am I being asked? Look at the lines you are told to look at. Find the question word and the key word. If I'm asked the motivation, I must answer motivation. If I'm asked the function of something, I must say what it does. If I'm asked to look at an image, a simile, a metaphor, personification, I must do that. If I'm asked about the change in a character, the change in Tommy from the beginning to the end, you must say Tommy was this, but he's become that. And please be accurate. So often candidates write things that are simply not in the text. They're not there. And then what do I write? FA, factual accuracy. And your answer is not factually accurate. Before I go on, let's take an ad break.